the show, but we've got our guest waiting now. And this is fortunate because I won't appear on his show, and that's going to happen in the near future. He, of course, is Gavin McInnes, an English-born Canadian writer, actor, comedian, serial entrepreneur, and co-founder of Vice Media. He's the host of the Gavin McInnes Show on Compound Media, and of course, he's a contributor for the Rebel Media and a frequent guest on national television. He's got a far longer bio than that, but for the interest of time, that's going to do it for now. Gavin, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Good to have you on. Now, we've got Salon.com yet again. And let's start off with this. Giving a platform to their resident paedophile, Todd Nickerson. We've got on the flip side, you know, Portland College lecturing young students about how they owe black people $20 trillion in reparations for slavery. Why is the leftist media lecturing white people about how they should be ashamed to be white while telling us to be proud of pedophiles just because they haven't molested children yet?
Because their agenda here is sabotage. It started out maybe as creative destruction. Let's tear it down and then rebuild society in our own image. But now it's just, you know what, screw rebuilding. Let's just blow it up. They have no plan here. They just want to wreck our culture. And everything that you should be ashamed of, you should be proud of. And everything you should be proud of, you should be ashamed of. And I realized today, I was talking about this with Mike Cernovich, we just need to put society in a Word doc and go edit, find, replace, look up shame and pride, and just replace all. Because everything that's white male, even we had a guy here, Nick Solares in New York, he was doing restaurant reviews. He just lost his job because he may have been associating with skinheads 30 years ago when he was 18. Conversely, we have this Todd Nickerson saying, hey, don't call me a child molester. I'm only a pedophile who babysits a 5-year-old.
I mean, if you had kids, would you let him anywhere near them? And the other thing about it is, did you see the video that they used in this latest article of him? They had him describing his fantasies about this 5-year-old girl, about how he had to relieve himself in the bathroom. And the background B-roll to this footage, like a 5-year-old girl dancing and twirling around. I mean, that to me was as sick as what he was actually saying, right?
I am so glad you brought that up because I was obsessed with that too. The way they frame it, they've clearly stated their agenda, which is we understand his sexuality. There you go. Oh my God, it makes me want to vomit just to look at. He calls her precocious and independent, and we show this video of her dancing around like they're trying to convey how he would be horny for her. It's infuriating, and it really shows how far we've come. And it also shows, by the way, we started out on relatively reasonable grounds here. We started out with gays are not monsters, lesbians are not monsters. I agree. And then we started going into gay marriage, and we said, well, I don't know if Christians should have to be part of these ceremonies. And it just keeps, as the Phil Robertson from Duck Dynasty said, it keeps morphing out from there. And now we have to accept that this guy wants to prey on our daughters, but is resisting. We're supposed to give him a Purple Heart because he's resisted preying on toddlers? No.
I mean, it's an illustration, again, of how low the left sets the bar for humanity. And that video is absolutely chilling. They're basically romanticizing the lust towards a 5-year-old girl. They're not talking about it in sober terms, even if you think that's permissible in the first place. It's like this dreamy footage of a 5-year-old girl twirling around while he's talking about masturbating over her in a toilet. And they treat this as a serious social justice cause. And he's allowed to have those. He should be respectful, and he should prosper now in society because he's achieved the goal of not molesting a child. And like you said, people are being fired for having conservative political opinions at the same time. I know somebody in a top university, just found out yesterday, who was hauled into a meeting and basically threatened with being fired because he retweeted me, and he retweeted a London Telegraph article about Caitlyn Jenner. Those opinions are not permissible in today's society, yet it's permissible to lust after a 5-year-old girl.
Yeah, I saw you tweeted that, and I wasn't remotely surprised. I mean, Britain is the place where Jack Buckby of Liberty GB now was kicked out of university as a student because he dared object to a professor who sympathized with the people who decapitated Lee Rigby. He said, I don't like you glorifying these Islamic terrorists, and he was asked to leave campus. We just had a guy here, I'm not into sports, but he's an ex-pitcher who put up a Facebook meme about creeps being in your bathroom, trannies. And he's off of ESPN now for good. It really is an upside-down world. And you start looking at the data and you go, wait a minute, I'm noticing a pattern here. Everything that is depraved and wrong and sick is good, and everything that is good, we should be ashamed of. White males, we built society. We separated church and state. We didn't end slavery. I mean, sorry, we didn't begin slavery. We ended it. How about
We'll be back with Gavin McInnes after the break. Stay right there, Gavin. We are back on the Alex Jones Show, this Thursday edition. And before we go back to our guests, I want to remind you to go to InfoWarsStore.com. Of course, next month we've got Bilderberg coming up. Again, we're sending 3 of our reporters, myself included, over to Germany. The flights, the hotels, the equipment, the food, everything that goes with it doesn't come free. Somebody has to pay for that. And of course, with your great support, we've been able to dispatch reporters all over America, different hotspots in the world even, to cover these breaking stories, to cover these big events, to challenge the mainstream media right there on the ground. And your support is much appreciated, which is why we insist, we plead with you to go to InfoWarsStore.com and check out the products. We've got 20% off Survival Shield. We've got Anthroplex special deals on that. We've got the water filters. And of course, free shipping on every order over $50. Again, that fuels our tank. That allows us to challenge the mainstream media narrative with your support at InfoWarsStore.com. Going back to Gavin McInnes. Gavin, I just want to get onto the interview you did with Jesse Hughes here in a moment. But first, he kind of had to recant. He had to back away from some of the claims he made in the aftermath of the Paris massacre, but we'll get to that in a second. We've seen that, you know, the left only succeeds when it does get people to recant, when it forces people to apologize, because as soon as you refuse to apologize, they completely lose their power. So is this how we win, you know, by leaving them no targets to feed on but each other?
Exactly. It's the grievance industry is fueled by capitulation. Apologies is their gasoline. And the less you capitulate, the less power they have. I'm reminded of Sarah Silverman, where she had some joke that involved the word chinks, where she said, I wrote I hate chinks, and then to get out of jury duty, I crossed it out and I wrote I love chinks. The American Asian Society demanded an apology, and she accused them of going pee-pee in her Coke. Boom. We never heard from them again. That was the end of that. But when you apologize, like Brett Ratner, he said, rehearsals are for fags at a Q&A for his movie Tower House. He apologized profusely for that. He was then forced to go on an apology tour of all of America. And I noticed this when I got in trouble for saying that if you have a sex change, you're not a woman. I refused to apologize, right? And what I did was, it's the same as locking these rats in a room. When they have no food, they end up cannibalizing each other. So I was sort of running up the mountain away from these nuts, these mentally ill homosexuals. And I noticed that when I stopped reacting to them, and by the way, reacting, I was just insulting. I never apologized. They started cannibalizing each other. Jim Goad calls it the cannibalization of the left. And they started, one of them told another one, I hope you drink bleach and die, and was kicked out of Out Magazine or something like that. So the secret to this problem is to stop giving them power. And the way you stop giving them power is you stop apologizing, you stop being ashamed, and you start being proud. We should be as proud as these pedophiles.
Well, I mean, we need to reassert these beliefs, these principles back into the mainstream because, I mean, if we've got our own media platforms, you know, we're responsible to nobody, basically. We're not Kurt Schilling. We're not going to get fired by some big network. So we can basically say what we want. But the fear is with people who have just got regular jobs, like, you know, the individual I mentioned earlier. So it's about setting that example, isn't it? It's about not apologizing, not flouncing, not doing, you know, I'd respect Stephen Fry in many ways, but he just quit Twitter. He basically flounced. That was the wrong thing to do. We need to reassert that our beliefs are part of the mainstream. They're completely sensible, logical. They shouldn't be decried as hate speech or triggering or insulting because they're then that gives people in the regular working world more confidence to espouse the same beliefs, correct?
Exactly. And I get a lot of trouble from the far right with this. I'm against anonymity. You use your real name. I use my real name. If people think we're faking or lying, go look at our body of work for decades. You should get in trouble. You should get fired. You should become a pariah because they can't arrest us all. What they're doing right now is they're isolating the few brave ones and vilifying us and getting us fired and making us into lepers. Well, we all have to become lepers. And then all of a sudden they become the lepers because we know they're a minority. They're just a very loud, very shrill minority. And they're dominating the majority by, quite frankly, being braver than us. We have to stand up to them and say, my name is Gavin McInnes. I am not ashamed of being a white male, and I think your behavior is disgusting.
And it's interesting, there was this big social network that was about to launch about a month or two ago where they would shame people. They would link their online comments with their employment, their jobs. Yes. That was actually shot down. Yeah, they fed on each other, didn't they? The SJWs got that shut down because it would have just created more bullying. We'll talk about it after the break with Gavin McInnes on the Alex Jones Show. Breaking news at Infowars.com. Don't go away. We'll be right back. We are back. It's the Alex Jones Show live with our guest, Gavin McInnes, CompoundMedia.com, and of course, The Rebel Media. Now, I want to talk about this because I just read this interview actually earlier today before I even knew that I was going to interview Gavin. Gavin, you did another interview with Jesse Hughes, who, of course, is the Eagles of Death metal singer who was playing at the Bataclan Theatre in Paris during the Paris massacre. Back in March, he came out in this Rolling Stone interview. He was basically forced to back down over his comments about what he witnessed immediately before the attack because they had the usual mob outrage meltdown. He, at the time, basically said that there was some indication the security, the Muslims working in the security at the theater, may have had some foreknowledge, may have allowed this to happen. He kind of backed down from that. He recanted a little bit, as we were talking about before. Now he's come back and kind of reaffirmed some of those claims. Tell us about this interview and what was said.
I think the deal with Jesse is he's a rock and roll musician, so he's not used to this world. And when he comes out and is honest about what he saw, which is, by the way, Muslims, the same shooters that did the shooting, they're all day in the venue, looking at people strangely, security guards not doing their normal job, which is guarding the back door, all of this strange behavior very early. So the narrative that they just sort of stormed in and started shooting people, no. The joint was being cased, and they were in there for a reason. You know how shows go when you're the band, you do sound check, no one's allowed in, the back door must be shut. He noticed, by the way, when he was running out that the back door had been propped open. There was all this unusual behavior. Now, I don't know why he recanted. I should have asked him about that, I guess. But I think what happened was he had managers and agents and labels going, what are you doing? Don't talk about that. And he went, what? Okay, sorry. And then I think he went, wait a minute, I'm not sorry. And when we spoke, he went back to story A, the original version of events, which is indisputable, which is someone there was in on it. And I think what happened was, and we're seeing this all over the Western world, no one wanted to be bigoted. So they wanted to have a large percentage of Muslim employees at this place to look cool. Even though the Bataclan is a Jewish venue, they were already putting themselves at risk by hiring these scumbags.
And he also made this comment, which I found interesting, because this is something I've reported on. Quote, a day after at the stadium, Muslims booed the moment of silence, and we barely heard about it in the press. I saw Muslims celebrating in the street during the attack. I saw it with my own eyes in real time. How did they know what was going on? There must have been coordination. So again, that goes to the possibility of prior knowledge, but it also goes to the fact that after Brussels, Belgium's vice prime minister came out and said that he admitted that Muslims were celebrating in the streets after the attack on the Brussels airport and metro. We had a similar thing. A teacher blew the whistle on some Muslim students in his class were celebrating the Brussels attack. So what does it say about, the state of multiculturalism and integration in Europe that Muslims are out on the streets celebrating these ISIS massacres? I guess hug a Muslim wasn't much success, right?
No, well, it's two things, and they're equally sinister here. One is that Muslims who know what happened and can see it with their own eyes go, yay, you blew up a bunch of infidels. Two is there's some who already knew. Now, I've seen French people in Paris talk about they were outside and they thought it was fireworks. So even if you are a Muslim and you hear that sound, why do you instantly know that infidels are being killed inside? Unless there was talk going around the community that there was going to be an anti-infidel attack. And we know that the soccer stadium was attacked at the same time. 140 people died that day. Only 89 were at the Bataclan. And when you have that many people being attacked, you know that there's multitudes of people providing arms, coordinating the attacks. It goes out from there. And then when the police, by the way, the police in Paris are on the same page as us. They are pissed off. It's only the Parisian citizens that have swallowed this multicultural crap. But they look at Les Banlieues, the satellite suburbs around Paris, 420 mosques, 100% of them had jihadist recruitment material in them.
And they found a bunch of weapons there as well. And with the police, this is correct. This also came up in the interview, I believe. They were told that there was some kind of hostage situation, which is why there was a delay in the response, correct?
Well, I have heard, and Jesse didn't confirm this publicly, but I have heard through my connections there that the cops actually went out assassinating jihadists. There was guys that they were suspicious of, that they knew they were involved, and they went there and shot them point blank because they knew any other way would just be a slow burn and they wouldn't get their bad guys. I've heard the same thing with Katrina, too, that a lot of detectives will take advantage of this time to take out repeat offenders. I'm not sure how I feel about that, actually.
No, I mean, this is a huge interview. I think I'm going to do an article on this. This is his quote. There's no denying the terrorists were already inside and they had to get in somehow. During the shooting, outside and the backstage door was propped open. How did that happen? So it's just interesting how he's now come back and basically reaffirmed what he saw in the first place. He had to say, well, yes, I don't know 100% for sure that the Muslim security had prior knowledge, but he's basically retelling what he said in the first place. And it's extremely interesting, especially given what's happened last night. The flight out of Paris, again, hug a Muslim, didn't seem to work. This is another attack on French people as well as the other nationalities on that plane. I think there were about 15 French people now dead. It looks like a terrorist attack. Have you been following this Egypt Air story?
Yes, and once again, what are we getting from the West? Total capitulation. Oh, it could have been some sort of electrical failure. Please, please don't face the truth. And that's because we are wimps now. And this is the ultimate weapon that terrorists use. They use our fear. They use our fear of Islamophobia. Rotherham was using it for a child prostitution ring. The police are too scared to prosecute them. The best weapon that ISIS has is our own innate insecurity about our culture. And that's what's nuts about these lefties is they're cannibalizing each other. They're trying to erase the male patriarchy. But when they're in control, they're the ones attacking each other. And when they look to a system, it ends up being way more sexist, racist, homophobic, archaic than ours. The white male patriarchy was working fine. And when you push it out, you replace it with this. Everything you hate times 1,000.
And now you've got women and feminists in Cologne immediately after the mass molestation going to the migrant camp and handing out roses. I mean, how do you explain that, Gavin? Is it trauma bonding? Is it Stockholm syndrome? Is it because it's more comfortable to delude yourself and think that this isn't a problem than to actually recognize it?
It's virtue signaling. You know, a lot of people are denying that the Bataclan even happened. I on my video on Rebel Media where I put it up, it's got as many dislikes as it does likes because these people are saying it's all a lie, it never happened. And I honestly think it just doesn't fit in their millennial brains. They go, no, this can't be it. Yes, it can be, okay? If your brain can't handle bad behavior from Muslims, just look at the raw evidence of, say, honor killings in Britain with Pakistanis. Look at them throwing acid in their daughter's face. Just that. Is that my fault? Is that my imperialism? Is that OPEC throwing that acid in their face? No. It's a religion that is plagued with inbreeding and is led by with verses more primitive than the Old Testament. We have a 2.0 with Christianity. The Quran is an ancient barbaric text, and these inbred Muslims are following it. It's a recipe for disaster. And the fact that we are laying out the red carpet for this because we feel so horrible about ourselves is, I mean, it's the apocalypse.
I mean, that's the point, isn't it? Western imperialism isn't to blame for the fact that, what, still 10, 11 Muslim countries execute gay people. That's got
Why
nothing
is it
to
a
do with the
given?
invasion of Iraq.
Why is it a given that Western imperialism was bad? Why is it a given that colonizing India was to their detriment? I thought Britain built beautiful infrastructures there. We just accept that white people going somewhere must have made it worse. I don't know. Haiti seems to be doing a lot worse since they kicked us out. Jamaica seems to be doing a lot worse since independence. I can't think of a place that kicked out white people and benefited from it.
Well, no, they equate that kind of ancient colonialism with modern day imperialism, which of course is now based around attacking and regime changing secular leaders who are actually fighting against the Islamists, people who are not perfect, but people like Saddam Hussein, Bashar al-Assad, Muammar Gaddafi. That's the modern version of imperialism, and that's actually playing into the hands of the Islamists. They again conflate that with the British coming into India and other places like that, as you just pointed out. Let's move on, though, because we're running out of time here. I wanted to talk about Vice Media. Of course, you were the co-founder of Vice Media. You left due to creative differences. In the years since, we've seen Vice kind of take a noticeable left turn. They're devolving into, a certain morass of SJW pandering. Was this, from what you know, a deliberate editorial decision? Why did Vice suddenly seem to flip so quickly into covering these kind of SJW angles?
Well, I mean, it's conjecture at this point because I'm not there, but I handled almost all the content back then, and it was relatively controversial, and it wasn't so much about a right-wing agenda or some sort of conservative plan. It was to keep it interesting. Everyone in the media was doing the Obama ass-kissing thing, so I said, let's do the opposite of that. And eventually the sales team got sick of going against the grain because it's not as profitable. So after I left, the sales team took over the editorial. And if you want to make money, you want to generate dollars, you have to go with the young demographic because they've got the most money. And the young demographic is wildly politically naive. I mean, they think North Carolina bathrooms are more important than this flight, as you pointed out earlier. They're just as bad as the British Tourism Board. So fine. If it makes dollars, it makes sense. And now the sales team is focused on pleasing millennials. And if you want to please millennials politically, you need a lobotomy.
No, I mean, 2007, I think it was, I saw an article which I've used for some of my information. We're talking about, how only 1.4% of whites owned slaves in America at the height of slavery compared to 28% of free blacks. They had the history of slavery, the fact that it was far more brutal. Under the Islamic slave trade, blacks were treated far worse for far longer. And now it's about, furries and other kin and transgender bathrooms. I mean, it's a very noticeable change. Well, let's get on to another issue, though, which is The Daily Show. I saw you put a video up about this a few days ago. Of course, it's falling off a cliff since Jon Stewart left. The ratings are down even more than they expected, even in an election cycle. And obviously that's because they hired a black guy due to his skin color, not because he was actually funny. But a lot of leftists, they still get their news from The Daily Show. They still get their cultural narrative from The Daily Show. You went on there to talk about women's soccer. Tell us what happened.
Well, the big problem with The Daily Show is they put multiculturalism over meritocracy. And Charles C. Johnson has made a lot of money shorting stocks with companies that put that kind of initiative out there. Because if you make meritocracy second, you're clearly making merit second. So they hired this guy, a bunch of women hired Trevor Noah because he's half black and South African and they love Obama, and he's incompetent. And so this show now is just diversity-driven madness with this huge liberal agenda. And when they asked me to talk about my article about women's soccer, I thought, you know what? Let's walk into the wood chipper. I know what they're going to do, but let's see it from the inside. And it was way worse than I thought. What I saw from the inside was a bunch of questions. We had a very cantankerous discussion. And I was telling him he's got to lose his tone. They brought my daughter in. I said, if you ever do that, I'll wring your neck. I said that you can't patronize someone and pinch your brow when you're wrong and they're right. Patronizing only works when you're the person in control. And so, of course, they cut all that out, as I knew they would. And at one point, they asked me to name some soccer players. I don't know any American soccer players. So I made up some names, including the word Junebug. And after the show, actually, after I said that, he goes, oh, yeah. those are some deep cuts. And then after the show, I go, you know, that was a joke, right? There's no such soccer player as Junebug. And they go, oh, geez, I had no idea. Then in post, they edit in this sort of like face. And I noticed, by the way, when we were done the interview, they film him for a second doing faces like, huh, and then sort of this like, oh, God, what an idiot this guy is. And then they make the Junebug thing, me going, Junebug, is that a guy? And then he adds a VO going, you're going to have to do better than that, Gavin. You're 0 for 2 at this point. And you think, Jesus Christ, you have all this money, this giant staff, all these resources to frame the white male, and all you multiculturalists can do is take his joke and pretend it was serious. Even with all the odds in your favor, you still have to cheat. It's pathetic.
And of course, the original debate was about the American women's soccer team wanting equal pay based on this claim that they were making more money than the male soccer players, correct?
Yes, and the way you get to that figure is you narrow in all this data to basically one game where they held the World Cup and they did get unprecedented eyeballs. So in 2015, they had a fantastic year, and the way you argue that they deserve more money is to ignore everything before or since, which is a ridiculous thing with soccer when even in America, it goes back to the early 1900s, men's soccer. And women's soccer is brand new, and it's not as good, sorry. But the free market isn't good enough. They demand equality, and they're used to it in this country because we got Title IX in college making this fake socialist equality that just doesn't exist when you look at the market.
I mean, it's a totally different, it's like a totally different sport. The level of skill and quality that goes into men and women's soccer. I mean, that's why there's such a huge disparity in the crowds. But final couple of minutes, your recent video, your latest one, you said that we were coming to the end of the social justice warrior hysteria phase. What do you mean by that?
Well, they cried wolf one too many times, and now they've gone from, you know, legitimate grievance where you go, okay, so what's going on here, to get lost. And people ask me for evidence of this, and I don't know. It's hard to quantify, you know, millions of people's behaviors. But Black Lives Matter was really the straw that broke the camel's back, and we saw that these Mizzou protesters were all rich kids. And if you want a good example of how the tables have turned, look at the chalkening. Someone wrote Trump in chalk. They said they felt unsafe. Now, 7 months ago, a year ago, that person would have been provided with the safe space, and you could look at a movie of puppies. This year, this month, when this happened, everyone laughed their head off, and they started writing Trump in chalk all over the country. I would wager that a lot of people writing Trump in chalk didn't even support Trump that much. They just enjoyed the fact that it was making these liberal students go apoplectic. So we've come to the point now where it's funny, and these guys dug their own grave. I mean, Salon has a pedophile telling us what the proper terms to use to call him. So now it's funny to us. It's become amusing, and you're going to see a lot fewer people losing their jobs, and you're going to see a lot more liberals becoming pariahs. I mean, look at Gawker. They're done.
Okay, final 40 seconds, Gavin. Just tell us how people can check out your content, how they can listen to the show.
Okay, go to anthonycumia.com, which is also compoundmedia.com. The name was just changed. You can check my Twitter, Gavin_McInnes, MCINNES. You've got streetcarnage.com, where I sort of amalgamate all this. And then the Canadian stuff, the Rebel videos at therebel.media. But again, it's all amalgamated on Twitter.
Okay, there we go, Gavin. Thanks for joining. And you will be on next week, I believe, for an hour with Alex and Anthony Cumia. So be sure to look out for that. We'll be back. Final segment of The Alex Jones Show coming up, Infowars.com.
My fellow InfoWarriors, I am very excited to be able to announce to you the introduction at InfoWarsLife.com of a new way to save time and money when you stock up on InfoWars Life formulations like Survival Shield X2 and Super Male Vitality. Just go to InfoWarsLife.com today, select your favorite product, click on Auto Ship before adding to cart, and choose how often you want us to send you another order. Every time you choose Auto Ship at InfoWarsLife.com, you get 10% off, and you won't have to worry about running out and having to reorder next time. And of course, you can cancel with one click anytime. As you know, I'm all about the idea of a 360 win, and the new auto ship feature at InfoWarsLife.com is a sure win for everybody. A win for liberty, a win for health, and a win when it comes to big savings. Visit InfoWarsLife.com today and save 10% on your next InfoWars Life order by selecting auto ship at checkout. That's InfoWarsLife.com or call 888-253-3139.